Hi guys, it's Matt here from Maxon UK, and in this video we are going to be looking at modelling this little character here. So this is a lovely little design that has been given to me by one of my friends. So thank you to Amelia. The link to her Instagram page is going to be part of this blog and below under the YouTube video. It's very important when you are attempting to do character modelling that you have some form of reference material, particularly a turnaround like we have here. So a front view and a side view at the very least will allow you to see exactly where your mesh needs to go way before you ever try and model it and potentially model yourself into a corner. Sometimes you can go a step further and you can add in a topology mesh as well. So you can, topology map, and you can try to plan where the polygon flow will go on your character before you even get into 3D. But for this tutorial I'm just going to show you how I would translate a 2D drawing like this into a 3D character. Okay, so let's get cracking. So I need to create myself my material first, which I will add as my reference. So it's really useful to be able to add in reference material straight into Cinema. I couldn't recommend it enough, not just from a teacher's point of view, but from an ability to actually being able to model. So let's just get that in there. Okay, so let's just have a look at the size, 2848 by 851. So I'm going to create myself a new plane, and I'm going to match that resolution. Okay, it does mean that this is going to be quite a large object, but it means that you can scale it down without a problem. But it means that it maps that image perfectly. So there we go, click that on. And you can see that we now have our bat character here, of which I should refer to as Barry, uninventively Barry the Bat. But the other thing I need to do is under my editor I need to change its default preview size. So by default it's quite a low resolution. You can see that that's a little bit grainy. But if I just up that a little bit, we should see that it does get a little bit clearer. There we go, so up to 1 meg, and I can see those lines. It makes life much easier for being able to match and marry up against what it is I'm about to do. So I need one of those, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so it's up that way, and then I'm going to make a second copy as well because I want a side view. So I'm going to move that towards the back so it's roughly in the middle, so his face is in the middle there, and then I'm going to create another copy. I'm going to rotate that, and then I'm going to add that over there and bring it back this way so it's roughly in the middle there. So we've got this cross section, so when I look from the front and the side I've got my view. Some people choose to put it in the middle, but I like to have mine out of the way so that I can rotate around without there being anything in the middle. So let's get cracking. So I will always start with a subdivision surface because I need it to be smooth. And then into that I will put symmetry, because why do I want to spend any more time than I need to? We can see that my character isn't exactly asymmetrical, but I can get the basics of him down and then I can tweak him a little bit later on. But it means I don't have to worry about necessarily doing the wings and the ears and stuff twice. I can just get this going in one foul swoop. And I'll start with a cube, which I shall segment 2 by 2 by 2 at the very least, make editable points, and then delete the half that I don't need. So let's delete the points that I no longer require, put those in my symmetry object, and we have the beginnings of Barry the Bat. He's quite square for Barry, but I can add in, and I'll need to knife geometry quite a bit into this, but I can at least get the basic form in there. Okay, so let's see how this goes. So definitely need to use side views and front views as well to be able to, work with this. I might just shift my plane along a bit so that I'm more in the middle. Okay, let's just get the basic shape of Barry over here then, shall we? So this is his sort of furthest point. Okay, and then let's have a look at what he looks like on the side. I think what I'll do with a lot of this is speed up some of the modelling so you don't have to sort of see me do step by step, otherwise we might be here for a while. So there we go. We have our Barry the Bat basic shape there. Very simple for the moment, nowhere near enough geometry as yet to be able to do the sort of detail in there that I would like, but that's where we will start to create and start working into it. So let's have a look. Let's start to, what I might do as well for I might put on X-ray, so I need to do it for everything, don't I? So that I can see through it when I am modelling, and I'll be able to look through my character. Okay, so let's add in a knife, probably around there, and that's going to form the basic of the lips. So we've got the mouth shape here, and we'll be able to just get those in. This is going to be a mix of some basic modelling and some sculpting, I feel, in order to get some of the finer detail. But to start with, we need to have a base model to be able to sculpt. And again, it's a little bit of my interpretation of this, so I'm going to have to be looking at where I think stuff needs to go. So that's probably the most logical place for an eye, isn't it, which is going to be there, but that line is definitely not where it needs to be, so we're going to have to move that back quite a bit, and we're going to have to protrude the nose out a bit further, and you can see that we'll start to get a little bit more shape, and it might just be a case of extruding inner with that and then rotating. So we know that's roughly going to be the front of the eye, but as you can see, it's going to require a little bit of manoeuvring. Might just turn off the X-ray again so I can see what it's doing. And don't forget to check your mesh as well, so turn off your subdivision to be able to have a look and see what it's creating. So what has it created there? Works a bit better. And don't forget also to turn off your symmetry and check that everything you need is at 0, or certainly for the bounding there, you need to make sure that the subdivision surface is off, and I just want to make sure that those points are at 0 when it comes to the X, which they are. Okay, so let's have a maneuver. So we might need more geometry than I've allowed myself, which is okay. You know, you learn this as you go and as you create your characters and you work with it. This is why sometimes that you'll have a topology map which would allow you to have figured this out necessarily before. But this is a nice little experiment for you guys to just sort of play around with and see what you think works for you. I can't recommend enough going back and checking to see what your mesh is doing, because you can see that this is not exactly pleasant. So you need to go back and see what it is, where your polygon flow is going, so that your polygons are in decent shapes. Otherwise you will find that things are a complete and utter mess. We're getting there. We're getting the eyes coming in more than going out at the moment, so let's see what we can do. Might be a case that the polygon flow is going to be better like that, and then we can have eyes in there. Let's try and keep the polygons roughly out. We might need to add in again some more, depending on what you want this to be able to do. But again, as I've said, there will be some sculpting involved in this, but I want to start with, at the very least, a basic mesh that will give me the rough outline of Barry the Bat. How are we looking on the side? Yeah, we've got that sort of shape going, so he still matches that way. But what we really need, I think, is another loop, which will upset my modelling a little bit. But it does mean that I can now look underneath and see what I can do to get this mouth shape a bit better. And again, you may have to adjust your geometry out a little bit. Ooh, we seem to be going really funny behind, don't we? So let's spend a little time just working out the geometry here. Smoothing it out a bit. There we go, that's a bit better, isn't it? You can see that this is getting a bit square, and I think perhaps we might need another ring of geometry, or loop rather, there, and that should allow us to just bring the roundness out a bit. Otherwise models have a tendency of looking just that little bit too square. So utilise the polygons and get that sort of round shape going. So you've got his kind of chubby cheeks and his mouth there. I wonder whether or not we need more polygons on the inside there. We may need a loop in here. So I shall do an inner extrude, which will give me that shape, and then I'm going to need to fix that center so that we don't have that little give him a cleft lip. So let's get rid of that and make sure our points are back at 0. So we're going to need to soften this out again, but we have got that definite lip going on there now, haven't we? Oop, wrong one. So I'm going to make sure I can select through So I want to be able to get that geometry to match his sort of sad, worried little expression. I don't know what he's sad for. Maybe he's not sad. Maybe he's just a concerned bat. Maybe he's a bat that's afraid of the dark. That would be quite sad for him, really, wouldn't it? I can't help but sort of talk about characters when I end up modelling them. You sort of start to imagine them, but then that's sort of the point of an animation, isn't it? You know, and the modelling that we do, we want to give these weird, wacky and wonderful creatures life. So what life would they be without bringing them to life and giving them a personality? Or am I just rambling? I don't know. That's up to you guys. I can just hear Amelia, the designer of this, just chuckling to herself right now, thinking, oof, okay. So I dread to think what that's going to look like. Yes, that's a bit nasty, isn't it? Right, yeah, we've got 2 points on top of each other, so we're going to have to just smooth them out a bit. Let's keep those loops nice, or as nice as we can anyway. So it's all about trying to keep relatively nice and smooth polygon geometry, which I'm not sure I've succeeded here. There's definitely going to need to be some fixing. Right, let's have a look at that. That's a bit better. He still looks worried, but just need to sort out the way this loop finalizes and smooth out that geometry, and I think we might get it. So if we spread the geometry that is becoming, it should smooth its way out just a bit. We've got a definite polygon twist there, which we need to try and avoid a bit. Ooh. Ooh, we've got something unhappy there. Ah, there we go. That's a bit better. Oh, I've lost my zeroing there. Here we go, that's not too bad. Looking a bit flat over here, so we'll just puff him out a bit. So it's always trying to make him keep that round shape of the body. So I'm just trying to think whether or not there's anything that I want or need to do to the rest to get the eyes. I mean, we have got some sort of eyebrows going on here, haven't we? So it gives the hint that there is some roundness around, so maybe I need to bring those forward so that those eyes are a bit more deep set. Kind of looks a bit like a grumpy frog, doesn't he? So let's marry up the height and size of those eyes a bit. I think I'd probably be tempted to, maybe I'd put in an alternate shape for the eye. I might leave that eyebrow detail for the sculpting. Ooh, didn't mean to clone him at all. There you go, I've got two of them. I have two grumpy bats. Okay, cool, he's not looking too bad. Let's get the wings sorted, and then I'm going to start looking at maybe working on making him editable and working on the shapes. So where do the wings start then? So let's have a look at our side view. So we're looking for a tiny sort of little bit here. So probably within those two polygons there. So if I use an inner extrude and I can position that and think how thin these wings are going to be, because if you look, they are really quite thin, aren't they? So they have a very small starting position. And if we look here, yeah, they're about there. So let's angle those polygons and push them back a bit. Again, a little bit of the body will need to be sorted. Perhaps I can just do a bit of that now. Just keeping everything tucked into shape. See, that's not too bad, but I shall deal with that a bit later. Once I've got the asymmetry, or rather when I'm working on the asymmetry, that's when I'll do that. So let's go back to the polygons and let's do some extrudes. So let's, no, not do an inner extrude, M and T. Let's whack that out a bit and see how that goes. So that's not too bad a shape. As I say, he's not symmetrical, but he will be for the moment. So maybe I can just work on these points. What I'll do my normal trick of a zero extrude, because I don't want it to be getting too wide. If I have a look at the top, yeah, we're okay. But he is starting to turn, so I need to marry up my points. I'm going to do a really basic one to start with. So that's going to be the top of that wing, which means I need to marry it up to there. So let's just get those wings out. I will definitely need more points and to add in some loops, I feel. So, because the bottom of the wings, oh, that's there. So we're sort of looking, that's the very bottom, which will be that one, roughly. But yeah, there'll be a little bit of artistic license in this. As I say, part of this tutorial is, you know, how I would translate a 2D drawing into a 3D model, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm hoping you're sort of finding it useful for the moment anyway. I've made Dumbo. Oh dear, that's not my plan. You can see that I'm just going to cheat quickly and add in those and then I shall knife into the loops. Yes, according to this, it gets very small indeed. But we'll have to watch our polygons there and see they don't go completely crazy. Okay, out and loop, and we'll loop one there, and then it means that we can get our wing lift up. Again, there will be a lot of shaping done once I've got the rough form. And that's what people who are starting out really need to sort of get. You don't get something straight away, largely. There is a lot of experiment and faffing, and you do get better at being able to do it, and you'll look at something and go, oh, I think I know how I'll be able to model that, and then you give it a go and you see how it turns out. But you never really know how to model something until you've, well, modelled it. So that's not too bad. I think we need to work on some of the curvature a bit. So we've gone a bit flat. So let's get that loop. So let's just get a few of the points that we need. And again, check your mesh. Try and make sure that the stuff that we've got is relatively nice geometry. So I'm trying to keep that flow so that we're getting those arcs and nothing is sort of stuck too far behind or too far forward. And polygons aren't too stretched or misshapen. And you'll find normally that the result is that you get a much cleaner mesh that's much more shaped the way you would expect it to be than if it's doing something slightly doolally that you were not quite expecting it to do. And we'll probably need even more geometry, certainly around these wing bits, ridges, in order to get some better shaping. So you can see that we start kind of quite thick at the top and then go down thin at the bottom, because that's the bony structure, as it were, of the wing. And again, it does help to have a little bit of, maybe reference or ideas of anatomy in order to help you produce stuff like this. Otherwise you'll find that it doesn't quite look right, because you're trying to do something that's roughly referencing something that's real, but without you know, it's got a bone, it's got a shoulder, so you need to make sure that it works in the same way that a bat would. Okay, cool. Maybe down the bottom there. Oh, that's why I try and keep the images out of the way. That's not too bad. It might be time to shrink those in a bit so that we get a little bit more of the point. But again, I think we need a little bit more geometry than that if we really want to make this work. Again, I could work into that a little bit more with sculpting, which I might do. But let's get those little ears in now. So where are they? They're about there. Probably that one. Let's see. Or halfway in between all of them. I think what I could do with is that carrying on up there. So let's adjust my geometry a little bit. And I'm going to use my line cut, and I'm just going to create myself some new geometry. Here we go. It does give me some triangles. Triangles aren't the best when trying to do character stuff because they don't necessarily deform as well as they should do. So I'm going to delete these polygons that I've just created that I don't need, and then I'm going to weld my points together. So let's just check that. Yeah, hasn't really made much of a difference to him, but does give me a couple of nice polygons that I can pick and choose for the ears. Although I'm still half not convinced where they need to go. Maybe. Someone's probably screaming at me at the moment going, put it there, put it there. But I think that one slightly further forward, and then I'm going to shrink that in so that we've got our polygon geometry, and then I shall move that where it needs to go. Ooh, he looks a bit evil there, doesn't he? In polygon mode. Right, okay. Maybe I should just copy and paste the wings in, but I think not. So let's do a tiny extrude and position this where it needs to go. I'm just going to get my geometry roughly made. There we go. And then I can I really should use keyboard shortcuts more often, shouldn't I? I don't. As most people know, I don't really use keyboard shortcuts, but I probably should. Maybe I should start. Oh dear. We're getting there, aren't we? So we're going to need to just bring in some more detail again, some more geometry. You could use the weighting, I guess. I could use some subdivision weighting using full stop to just give me antlers? No, maybe not. You can see that we get that shape a bit better. I might just extrude that polygon one more time to allow me to get that extra shape out. Okay. There we go. He's not looking too bad. Again, we might be able to do something similar. So U and L to loop select, and then edges mode. You can pick one of these. Hold down full stop, and that will sharpen up your edges. It's subdivision surface weighting, and it sort of retracts it back slightly more to what the original mesh underneath is working, and it has a couple of different modes, so depending on whether or not you've got points, polygons or edges selected will determine the different type of shape that you get. And you can see that that matches much better. Cool. Probably should do something that I haven't actually done yet, considering I've been modelling this far, is save it. So do make sure you save stuff as you go. So there we go, Barry. He can be Barry1. There we go. So we don't ever lose what we're working on. Oh, I wish I'd stop doing that. There we go. Let's have a look at the feet now. So where are his little feet? So at a guess about there. So that's a bit too far in, bearing in mind that there are two of them. Work that sort of way. Yeah, that looks good. That's going to work for me, I think. So you've got to think what the little feet are. So they're going to have maybe a tiny, teeny, weeny little leg, which I'm going to need to extrude on. So again, M and W. Let's get a loop in there. Oh, not two. And I'm going to just extrude that out a little bit. So he's got little dumpy feet, little dumpy legs. Okay. I might cheat a little bit here. Ooh. Considering he's only got 3 sort of fingers, I might utilise those 3 polygons to do it. Oh. Let's have a look at what we've got. Yeah, why not? So it depends. You've got to kind of think, what do you want to do with this? You know, what is the purpose of this? Are you creating something for the, want of a better phrase, the lols? Are you just creating it because you want to? Are you creating it to be a useful character? Are you intending on animating and rigging it? In which case, you know, you need to be working very tirelessly on character deformation and making sure that everything marries up the way you need it to be, that you don't have bad mesh geometry. So you need to be aware of what your function of your character is going to be. For me, I am just converting this into a 3D object just to sort of give you a tutorial, basically. I wasn't really going to look at rigging him. He's just going to be a nice little character. But maybe it's something I can look at, but I might have to rework my geometry. It depends what he needs to do. He quite clearly just sits and flaps, so what I now have is a simple geometry that would probably allow me to do some wing deformation, but I haven't modelled him to open his mouth. I might be able to do some work with his eyes. I might be able to do some work with his feet if I model him right. So M and T, I need to untick preserve groups because I want to extrude those out. And they're going to give me the basics of my little feet. That isn't quite what I had in mind, but it will work nonetheless. So let's get one going. So his little feet, he's got his curls toed, or even toes curled. So M and T again. And think about, it's a finger, so we want 1 knuckle, 2 knuckles, 3 knuckles. So I'm just curling that. So that's the end. I mean, we could. How many fingers does it look like it's got? It's got 3 fingers. How many knuckles does it look? So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So we need to make it look like a finger. So I'm going to do another tiny extrude. I'll tell you what, I might turn subdivision surface off for this, just so I can get these in position. And then my favourite, a 0 extrude, and a rotate, and a very tiny extrude. Oop, missed. To give the geometry for the knuckle, and then another one which will go back. There we go. So it sort of works. We haven't really got the creases in there, but it is, it's starting to look a little bit like a finger. And then what we'll do is I will delete those 2 polygons, and I think I will just I'll loop select that, U and Y to add that in, and that in, and that in. And then I think I should duplicate this, because it will make my life easier without necessarily having to do any more. Or clone, I guess. So if I do 2 clones, I will put them that way. Let's do X. There we go. And they'll look like little fingers. So we can position 1, and we can get that where we need it to be with the right holes. I am just going to yeah, I'm just going to match these up to start with. So loop those. Oh, that isn't what I want. Come on, do the inside. What about when you do boundary loop? Yes, 2 boundary loops. M and P stitch and sew, so I shall stitch those two together, which makes my life much easier, and then I shall select all of those, double clicking select the whole lovely little island, polygon island. Ooh. And then again, so using the boundary loop means it basically selects the end. And then M and P, stitch and sew, skadoosh. And we've got our little toes, we've got our little feet. Again, you can move some bits out. We might need to move the whole kit and caboodle over a bit if we really want to match up with my drawing. Oh, I'm doing invert selection, which is not what I wanted to do at all. I think we're a little bit low in comparison to the drawing, aren't we? Yeah. So we're a little bit more right with this one, but he is sort of wonky. So what I might actually do is try and marry it up to the left hand. Oh, I can't marry it up to the left hand side one, can I? But using the right hand side view. Again, artistic license does come into this, to be able to move and manipulate and decide how and where you want your character, and whether or not these work. Ooh, way off there. So we'll just add a little bit of individuality to the fingers. Oh, turn off loop. Turn off that one. Ooh. Okay, yeah. We're getting there. I'm just debating whether or not to turn the whole thing sideways a little bit. But I quite like the sort of individual look there, and then if we let me just select, ooh, hello. So if I select not those, Yeah, not bad. Let's work on those little toes a little bit more, just to give them a little bit more sense of individuality. I mean, again, depending on what you wanted to use this for, you could model them all straight out and then you could rig them with little fingers in, and, or rather finger bones, to stop you, oh dear, from having to model them in position, but I don't think I'm going to be going that far with it. There we go. We've got his lovely little toes. And there we have, I think, what I'm going to be happy with to start with as a relatively simple base mesh to be able to then sculpt some more detail into afterwards. Maybe I'll add in those teeth. Because the teeth there are either side, so it's either got a very wide face and then goes straight back. Is he much more round than I thought he was? Because in my mind, that tooth is much more further back, so it's rather either side than the front. Sometimes this is why a top view would be really helpful, but you know, you're given what you're given sometimes, and that's the challenge. That's why we do this. That's what's fun, is that we have our own artistic license to be able to experiment with what it is that we've been given to put together. So I'm just faffing with these now. But look, I'm using keyboard shortcuts, so. Oh. Okay, cool. So what I'll do, I shall save it again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a copy of my subdivision surface. I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to call this backup. It's always good to make a second version, it's good to make a second save, but it means that I've got the original mesh there if I ever need to do anything before I make my symmetry editable. And now I only have one dude, one side that I can start working on. The more, you know, characterization of this little guy. So I need to be able to see through him so that I can work on these eyes, really, don't I? Because they're the biggest thing that I've got that make this character totally doolally. Almost to the point that he is lopsided. Let's have a look. Let's see what we've. I think perhaps I really could have done with an eye loop, couldn't I? So what I might do, having looked at that, and now I need to change it, is I may delete or rework that. Maybe if I a little bit, let's up the angle to preserve the group. There we go. That's a bit better. And then maybe I can just shift that out. And that gives me an extra nose and eye loop in there that's probably going to be really useful. Probably should do the same to this one as well. So, MW.
squish. See, it's funny, isn't it? Within the space of making it editable, I've already reworked the mesh. But this is sort of what you do when you play with modelling. You learn as you go. So I'm going to use that as a basis to get that eye shape. Much more where I feel that eye would need to go. And then let's have a look at the big eye here. So it really feels like there should be another loop there. I'll ponder that. But already we're getting something that's a lot more individual. Ooh, I need to make sure I'm not selecting through there. And a lot more like the character that we were trying to create. All of a sudden this feels like he's come to life to me. I now feel like I'm much more staring at the little strange dude that I've just been looking at for the last hour or so than I was about 20 minutes ago, when I didn't feel I had that character here yet. What about the mouth? Oh, I just deselected the wrong thing. What am I doing? That one. Oh, no. And that's behind as well, isn't it? So let's just make sure we're... yeah, don't want that one. He's quite a cute little character, really, isn't he? He's very silly. We've also got a little dimple that we need to give him as well, haven't I? I've just noticed. So that's relatively easy to do. Just protrude that forward. Maybe lower it a bit. But the whole point of this character is that we're now looking at, you know, a real different shape than we were a little while ago when we were trying to marry up a symmetry object that, you know, he really isn't symmetrical. So, you know, it's a judge. Have I saved myself time by doing symmetry first, or should I have done this individually from the beginning? You know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another, really. It depends on what you want to do, how you want to go for it, and I guess your confidence in modelling. So just need to tidy up some of the geometry in there. It's probably time to have a look inside as well, isn't it? Yes. So we've got some little bit of nasty polygonness going on here, haven't we? That polygon particularly. bit better. As I say, we got a triangle there, but no, we haven't. I really think perhaps I need some better geometry there and there, really. Oh my. Ooh, I don't even know what I'm moving there. There we go, that's getting a bit better. Let's see how that's looking. Yeah, that feels a bit better now. So it's much nicer to be able to maneuver your way around once you know that your underlying mesh is much cleaner. And you can see that we get a much better flow. It will still take some tweaking, and you know, we've got some differences and some changing, but it does feel much nicer. What's another one of the major differences? I suppose it's that foot, really, isn't it? So let's get that foot. I think perhaps what I'm going to do is deselect that, but I'm going to use soft selection to just allow me to move that and let it edit and manipulate the others around without me having to do so much. It's, as you've probably guessed, not a tool I use possibly as much as I should do, because I just forget it's there, if I'm perfectly honest. And it would enable you to, you know, adjust the geometry like that. And you can change the radius that it has an impact on, and you can change whether or not it has across the entire object like it did a minute ago. If I turn off surface, it will have an impact on the stuff underneath as well, which sometimes is useful but other times is not. So if you put it on surface, it will only do it across where it is, it won't go through the object. But this would have made my life much easier, really, wouldn't it? I should have used it a little while ago. You can see it stretches out much in the same sort of way. Probably never put this tool down again now. Cool, and then just deselect. And let's have a quick nose. What I might do. Yeah, here we go. I should have done that ages ago as well. So we've got the eye. Maybe the eyes come down a little bit lower. So we've got something that's making that shape anyway. And this geometry can all change and shift quite a bit because of... this might help. Everything's moved a little bit. think we're definitely lacking for geometry in that eye, but I'm just debating how much it's actually going to impact me on anything that I'm going to do. Either way, you know, if it's it's a far better mesh we had than if I look at my backup and we just put him underneath. Oh, other way around. Put the backup underneath. You can see that we've come a long way already into getting something that looks a lot more like our little, you know, Barry the Bat. Alright, and I'm going to save that again. So we've got our feet. I think perhaps the next thing, and we've got our eyes which are working quite well, so I think perhaps the next thing would be to just work on our wings a little bit. Let's get a bit more shape into him. Going to hide the backup again. So I think what we're really lacking largely is geometry. We're a bit thin on the ground there. So let's get some more in there. Perhaps I should have done that earlier when I had both sides. But hey ho. I am going to just rework these a little bit so that they're a little bit more even, and I want wow, this is a real mess, isn't it? Here we go. So that I'm going to reuse as that one up there. And I suppose they do need to be quite close because of the way the subdivision surface works. Although I could do it to both of them, couldn't I? Make sure that they are quite close together. And then K and L for another loop, and I want that there, and that I shall, oh, there we go. So that one and that one, U and L to tighten that up. Ooh, what was that? Right, and full stop. There we go, that tightens those ones up. So, I will add in OK and out, and let's manipulate those up, and I think we'll find that we'll get a much better shape from it, a bit like we've got here. I might add one in nearer the shoulder. And nearer the edge there. Because then what I can do is use the points. That I have. There we go. I think you can see the difference between one and the other. I think they're a bit close. And I think some more finer detail of these wings I will probably sculpt in. Oh, for heaven's sake. There we go. Because we could extrude those out. Ooh, backs are a bit messy, aren't they? Let's just spend some time sorting that out. There we go. So these are the bony bits where the bones are largely, so I need to make the inner bits thinner. So let's just push those in. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to overlap themselves, but I do need to get that impression that that bit is thinner. There we go. That feels a bit better, doesn't it? I also feel like what I could really do with is either a loop around here that carries on, but where to join it is the question. Because this doesn't have any thickness at the moment, it's just made up of that. Whereas really this is supposed to be sort of round. So really I need another loop that goes in here, which I think I could join to, well, around there. If I did K and L, that's going to put another set of geometry all the way through. Is that a bad thing? Not really sure at this point. It may not be necessary. It may be more geometry than I need, but it also may not be too much of an issue. So, I don't think that's too much of an issue. So I'm just going to sort this out a little bit, and I'm going to give our model some thickness at the top. Okay, that hasn't quite achieved what I really wanted it to. I think perhaps, yeah, it's because I've not really watched what I was doing. So what I might do is undo all of that. There we go, that's better. So we're getting a little bit more of a sense of roundness there. Okay. Have I actually achieved what I was after? A little bit. It sort of feels a bit rounder there. But there's no comparison, or depth as it were. As really, if we want it to feel round at the top, those need to be a tad higher. And I might use, oh no, there we go. That's warping things a bit, but it is giving me more of the shape that I was after. There you go. You can see in comparison to the other wing, that's much nicer. It's a lot more sort of bat-like and a lot more like my image. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just go to my subdivision, and then I'm going to get rid of the other side rather than faff with that. So actually take the points, because otherwise the points linger. So UY to just increase my point selection, make sure I'm not going to get anything I don't want. Actually, I don't think I want that loop, so I shall just deselect that. So that's those, and delete. And then I shall select my polygons here. Marvellous. Okay, and using my side view, I shall go to M and then H to mirror, and I shall put my polygons back there. So they won't be in exactly the right position from that, so I shall just need to do some manoeuvring. But as you've seen me use before, I can use stitch and sew. So get that boundary loop, which I shall, there we go, dunk, and then that one, and then M and P, and join dot to dot, and there we go. Okay, there he is. So I might add in some eyeballs now so that he doesn't look quite so hollow, I suppose. I've gone a bit Tim Burton here, haven't I, really? So really simply, again, I shall start with a cube, and I will start with a subdivision surface, and I'll put that in there. Not a lot of detail, didn't take very long, did it? So let's just copy and paste. So I've got a second one, I'm going to have to shrink that down. Cool, and there we have it. As I say, I might just do a little bit of sculpting to add in some more detail, some experimental stuff with it. But for now, I'm going to save that, and let's get ready to sculpt. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe or check out blog.maxon.co.uk.